The earth beneath the city of Mosul is not merely soil, it is a ledger of empires, written in layers of ash, mud brick, and blood. For 3,000 years, this geography has stood as a witness to the rise and fall of civilizations, from the iron-fisted rule of the Neo-Assyrian kings to the medieval grandeur of the Zengids, and finally, to the catastrophic occupation by the Islamic State in the 21st century. But in late 2023, from the gloom of a looted tunnel dug by terrorists, a ghost emerged. It was a spirit of protection that had waited in the dark for nearly 3 millennia. They call it the Mosul Colossus. It is a Lamassu, a celestial hybrid with the head of a human, the body of a bull, and the wings of an eagle. Standing nearly 18 tons in weight and carved from a single block of translucent gypsum alabaster, it is one of the largest and most pristine examples of Assyrian monumental art ever recovered. Its rediscovery is not just an archaeological triumph, it is a story of survival. This creature has survived the fall of Sargon II, the neglect of centuries, the greed of 19th century colonial excavators, and the jackhammers of modern zealots. To understand the gravity of this discovery, we have to travel back to the world that necessitated its creation. The Neo-Assyrian Empire, spanning roughly from 911 to 609 BCE, was the first true superpower of the ancient world. Rulers like Sennacherib and Sargon II controlled a territory stretching from the mountains of Iran to the Nile Delta. Their power was absolute, maintained by a military machine of terrifying efficiency. But their dominance was not just physical, it was psychological. The Assyrian capital cities, including Nimrud, Nineveh, and Der-Sharrukin, were designed as machines of intimidation. When a foreign diplomat approached the royal palace, the architecture itself was a weapon. The walls soared dozens of meters into the air, painted in blinding stripes of cobalt blue and red ochre. And at every vulnerable point, at every gate and doorway, stood the Lamassu. These were apotropaic deities, figures intended to ward off evil. In the Assyrian worldview, the universe was teeming with chaotic forces and demons. The king sat at the center of a cosmic order that required constant defense. The composition of the Colossus is a masterclass in theological symbolism. The human head, crowned with a tiara of bull horns, represents intelligence and divinity. The face is often that of the king himself, freezing his wisdom in stone. The body of the bull represents physical strength and the raw power of nature harnessed by the state. The wings of the eagle represent swiftness and a connection to the heavens. But the true genius of the Lamassu lies in a specific optical trick. These statues were not meant to be static museum objects, they were architectural machines. If you look closely at the legs of the Mosul Colossus, you will see a strange anomaly. It has 5 legs. This was deliberate. When the visitor approached the gate head-on, they saw the 2 front legs planted firmly side by side. The creature appeared to be standing still, a sentinel blocking the path. However, as the visitor passed through the gate and looked up at the creature from the side, the 5th leg became visible, while one of the front legs disappeared behind the other. Suddenly, the creature appeared to be striding forward. The static guardian became a moving escort, walking alongside the visitor as they entered the presence of the king. It was an animation in stone, a predecessor to the motion picture created 700 years before Christ. We often imagine these ruins as beige and dusty, but the palace of Sargon II at Der-Sharrukin, where the Mosul Colossus was born, was a riot of sensory overload. Chemical analyses of pigment traces reveal that the Lamassu were painted. The beards were likely dark blue, using expensive bitumen or Egyptian blue pigment. The whites of the eyes were enameled, creating a piercing stare. Between the legs of the Colossus is the standard inscription, a text found on nearly every major Assyrian monument. It lists the king's titles and conquests, but it ends with a curse for any future ruler who might deface the statue. It reads, "May Ashur, the father of the gods, look upon him with anger, overthrow his kingdom, and blot out his name and his seed from the land." For 2,700 years, that curse seemed to hold. The modern story of these bulls shifts from ancient Mesopotamia to the gaslit libraries of 19th century Europe. By the 1840s, the race to uncover biblical Nineveh had become a proxy war between the French and the British. It was a gold rush for granite. The French consul, Paul-Émile Botta, began digging at Khorsabad, the site of ancient Der-Sharrukin. When his shovel hit stone, he found monsters that matched no classical Greek or Roman style. They were alien and terrifying. The extraction of these colossi was a logistical nightmare. These statues weighed up to 40 tons. The Assyrians had moved them using armies of prisoners, but the Victorian archaeologists had to make do with primitive carts and the fickle Tigris River. The British adventurer, Austin Henry Layard, described the terror of local villagers when they saw the massive bulls being lowered onto carts, believing the spirit of a jinni had been awakened. But not all the bulls made it to the museums of Europe. In 1855, a disaster struck that remains one of the greatest losses in archaeological history. A massive convoy of rafts, carrying hundreds of crates of reliefs and statues destined for the Louvre, was attacked by local tribes near the town of Al-Qurna. In the chaos, the rafts capsized. Several colossal Lamassu and winged genies sank into the silt of the Tigris River. They are still there today, a lost fleet of gods, buried in the mud of southern Iraq. This history of extraction and loss brings us to the 21st century and the darkest chapter for Mosul's heritage. In June 2014, the Islamic State took control of the city. Their ideology viewed the pre-Islamic heritage of Mesopotamia as idolatry. The world watched in horror as they released videos of men taking sledgehammers to the statues in the Mosul Museum. They took power drills to the faces of kings. But while they destroyed statues on camera for propaganda, they were quietly looting others to sell on the black market. The most dramatic story occurred at the shrine of Nebi Yunus, the traditional tomb of the prophet Jonah. ISIS blew up the mosque sitting atop the hill, but they knew that beneath the rubble lay the ruins of the military palace of Esarhaddon. They recruited locals to dig a honeycomb of unstable tunnels deep into the heart of the Assyrian mound, looking for gold and artifacts. In the darkness of those tunnels, they found the Guardians. Meanwhile, near the village of Khorsabad, another drama was unfolding. In the 1990s, Iraqi archaeologists had discovered a massive Lamassu, but had reburied it to protect it from looters. When ISIS approached Khorsabad in 2014, the local villagers, descendants of the men who worked for the 19th century excavators, reportedly heaped more earth and debris over the site. They effectively hid the god from the iconoclasts. ISIS ravaged the surface ruins, but they missed the prize beneath their feet. The curse of the Lamassu had evolved. It was no longer protecting the king from demons. The people were protecting the Lamassu from the new demons. Mosul was liberated in 2017 and the archaeologists returned to a ruined city. At Nebi Yunus, the tunnels were on the verge of collapse. But when teams from the Iraqi State Board of Antiquities and Heritage entered the gloom, they found the reliefs of Esarhaddon carved into the limestone walls. And guarding the entrance to the throne room was a Lamassu of unprecedented size. This was the Mosul Colossus. It stands, or rather sits in the earth, at nearly 6 meters tall, dwarfing the famous examples in the British Museum. It was a monster among monsters. In October 2023, a French-Iraqi team returned to Khorsabad to check on the other buried bull. When they removed the earth that had shielded it for 30 years, they found it remarkably intact. The alabaster was white and gleaming. The feathers of the wings were crisp. It weighed 18 tons. The fact that it had survived the chaotic 90s, the 2003 invasion, and the ISIS occupation was a miracle. The resurrection of these colossi is now being aided by technology. Because the tunnels are too dangerous for the public, archaeologists use photogrammetry to create digital twins of the site. High-resolution photos taken in the dark are stitched together to preserve the context of the discovery. The question now facing Iraqi authorities is what to do with the Mosul Colossus. Do you cut it up to move it to a museum? Do you leave it in the tunnels? Or do you excavate the entire mound, which would mean destroying the ruins of the mosque above to reveal the palace below? It is a dilemma of stratigraphy and politics. For now, the Colossus waits, protected by sensors and guards. There is a profound irony in the story of the Lamassu. These creatures were built to project strength and terrify. But today, their power comes from their vulnerability. We do not look at the Mosul Colossus and feel fear. We feel a desperate protectiveness. We see the scars of history and the resilience of culture. When the Assyrian sculptors carved that fifth leg, they intended to create an illusion of movement, to make the stone walk. They succeeded more than they could have imagined. These bulls have walked through fire, through water, and through time. They have walked from the palaces of tyrants to the darkness of terrorist tunnels, and finally, back into the light. The king is dead, the empire is dust, but the bull still stands.